Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about quitting your job, so let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, have you ever decided, quote unquote, that I do not get paid enough for this and then actually followed through and quit your job? I didn't think that exact term, but yes, I have. So well, basically, it's a little bit of a story, but uh, what I usually try to think about when I take any job or whatever I do, well, the way I think about it is that my job is just that. It is a job. It's like but my craft is different. So for me, as long as I'm coding or building things or doing something that I find enjoyable, who I do it for is less relevant to me. And as I like to say to people, like whenever I go, like I can work for any company basically, as long as they have an interesting problem that I have to deal with. And it doesn't matter how great the organization is or things like that to me personally, if the things that I'm doing are not fulfilling or something like that. And so due to the fact that I think in those terms, really I put different sorts of requirements on my employer than what a lot of my friends and coworkers have done. Like I have friends who are quote unquote very loyal to their companies and things like that, and I always tell them I will be super loyal. I will work harder than any, well, as hard as anybody else, if not harder, as long as this company treats me in accordance with what I expect. That's basically what it comes down to. And so if that is not happening, in other words, if I feel that my organization or like my employer is either ignoring my requests or putting me on, like there's a misalignment between what I am expecting to do within the organization and what they're actually asking me to do and things like that. I treat it in exactly the same way as I would have treated as when I buy a product from or a service from somebody. I don't look at it as anything different. I have certain expectations when I make a purchase from a store or something like that, and if they don't fulfill that contract, then all bets are off, according to me. And so the time that this has happened in most recent time was at my last job. So I took a job at a company where, well, basically I came to work there because the the person that I was working for was an old mentor of mine, probably one of the best software developers I've ever worked with. He's probably taught me basically everything I know about front end development, and he had become a manager, and so we had been talking on and off for a few years, and basically I took an interview with the company. I got to meet some of his best people, or at least I think that they are, and they were very impressive to me. I like to say that I've never really met a senior, in this case it was front end developer, and then I met these people and I thought to myself, all right, yeah, these guys, they qualify for senior front end developer in my opinion. And so I was very keen on working with them, and so I joined the specialists group basically, which is they all more or less work directly for my friend. And then after a little while, there came an opportunity where the idea was that I was going to take on another team. And so there was this initiative where the idea was that if I took on this team, I could get more engaged so that I could be applicable for promotion and actually get somewhere like higher up in the organization and get more influence and things like that. And so I took over that team. It was a bit rough going in the beginning because it was a bit of a problematic situation, but I'd like to think that I handled it fairly well because it turned around after a few months, and then after doing that I became more and more involved in most of the things that were going on within that specific part of the organization. I became a little bit of a go-to, and more teams were introduced to me, and so I took charge of an initiative where the idea was that we were going to co-locate all of the internal systems at the company within, well, a collaborative structure, because as you can imagine, in larger organizations you have a lot of different departments, and getting alignment and consistency across all of those different projects is fairly difficult. But that is what more or less became my side mission apart from running the team. And then after a little while of doing that, I started doing that more full time, and then I got another team, same situation there, a team that it wasn't really going as well as people had hoped, and so I took ownership for that. And by now, and just to make this clear, guys, I still have the same obligations that I had on top of this other stuff. So by the time I get to this point, we're about 9 months or ish, something like that, into my employment at this company. I have more or less 3 jobs, full-time jobs, or like semi-full-time jobs, depending on how you look at it, because I of course had to juggle around a lot of stuff in order to make it all work. But I think I did so fairly well. And so my friend had told me that, well, the ambition was to make me what we call staff engineer, like we were going to get me a promotion. And so I think we talk about it 3 or 4 times roughly, and I'm constantly put in this position where, okay, you're gonna have to wait a little bit, and now there's things happening, and then there was economic downturn, like there are all of these sort of things that start popping up that gets in the way of this happening, until finally it gets to a point where they more or less say that we can't really tell you when it's going to happen, like when you're going to get a promotion, right? Or like when you're going to get like the next level, because as you can imagine now, so now I am still on paper a senior software developer within this company. I have 7 teams that I meet up with a weekly basis, which all basically align with me on like technical architecture and things like that. I run 2 teams independently, like a product manager for one, and a tech lead and a senior front-end developer, not front-end developer, but a full stack in this case, for that team. And I'm also aligning with all the other architects and so forth in the organization. So I would say that it's fairly fair that the title of senior software developer, like even the term staff engineer, wasn't applicable anymore. We had not even the other developers had that amount of responsibilities at the given time, right? But as I know my friend, and I said so to him, I fully understand that you can't do much because it's not within his power to do anything about this, because it's the organization itself, like higher management, that makes these sorts of decisions. And then I do the thing that I always do, which is that I ask myself the question, am I okay with this? And I go, no, I'm not okay with this, because I came to this company and I started working. One part was because I wanted to work with specialists. That was the first thing. That went away after 3 months, because the people I was working with at this time, they are not specialists. I was the specialist and everybody else was aligning with me. But I didn't have anybody to collaborate with that had the skill level that I wanted from my coworkers, so that I could actually learn something from them. Those guys were working somewhere else. And I can't just abandon this, right? So because they've locked me into this now, basically. And I have no options of like getting higher within the organization, because they basically said that we're not, promoting people up to the highest level, and they had some other guy that had been promoted. Like they basically brought in some other dude to take the responsibility, which was kind of weird to me as well. So as I said, like they're not going to increase my salary to the level that it's appropriate. They're not going to promote me, and they're not going to just let me drop all of this and go and like actually work with the people that I wanted to work with. So I said, all right, I'll start looking at some other options and do the thing that I do, which is race. For those of you who like when you have 2 concurrent operations, you race them against each other, you see which one happens first. And I said, all right, let me know when we can have a discussion, a more concrete discussion about my future at this company and so forth. And while I do that, I start looking at jobs in another spot. And it takes me because at this level of my career, it's harder to find work, not as a software developer or a senior or like a tech lead or something like that, but at the level that I find myself, which is like tech lead, no, tech lead plus plus, where like we're talking about staff engineer, principal engineer, CTO, or things like that, where like the responsibilities that I'm looking for are more niched. You don't need like 100 people of this type. It's usually just a handful of people. But I finally get in contact with a few companies where I get some leads, and then I get an offer from one of them, which is the company I'm working for right now. And then I go to my manager, and he goes like completely like, where did this come from? And I said, yeah, like as soon as you said that there was no more like that you wouldn't be able to discuss this further, I started looking immediately for another job. It's nothing personal, it's just business. And then of course they come and say, okay, how much would we have to pay you to keep you here? And I said, it's too late. That ship sailed, what was it, a month or 2 months back. And there, you already have told me that there is no future in terms of like, even if you pay me more, what are you going to do next year when I want to climb the ladder? So what I want you to take away from this is that my personal strategy, I have quit jobs where, as I've said before, guys, they usually weigh when you're not getting any concrete traction on salary increases or movement or anything like that, anything you want within the organization. This is just how I do it. I treat it just as being at a restaurant or whatever. I literally just pick my shit up and go immediately. Like I don't wait around for people to resolve their shit, because it is not interesting to me what the reasons are for you not, being able to facilitate this, because as I like to say, it's usually the case for most humans. They will only do anything when it's do or die. And so I forced that situation very quickly. Had my friend, let's say for the sake of argument, and I said so to him, I said it to my friend, I don't hold him responsible in any way. There are no hard feelings, and I would love to come back, in the future when you have different opportunities, but those opportunities are not here right now. And you have no power to influence that. It's not his fault, because I know my friend. He would have given me everything I asked for like that, if he could, but he can't. And that's okay. So there was somebody else, or like another company, that had the need for my experiences, so I went to them instead. And I urge you to do the same sort of thing, guys. Don't just let well enough be if you are unhappy with the situation. But just make sure that you have options, and that's the best situation you can possibly be in. You don't have to be like disloyal to a company, or don't harbor ill will against companies and stuff like that, but depending on like all kinds of emotional things. Just treat it for what it is. If they're not paying you fairly, or like you're not getting the opportunities and so forth, just look at it as you bought a shitty product, or you went to a bad restaurant or something like that. Okay, this is how they want to do business. All right, that's not for me. I'm just going to go and eat somewhere else. Have a great day.